day, grade 12 learners, and welcome to today's English First Additional Language lesson. My name is Elizabeth Meyer, and this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono Discovery Centre. Remember, you can always contact me on our WhatsApp line 064 748 8913. So you have a question or a comment, please use it. Welcome. I'm sure you're excited. Yes, tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow you're writing your English First Additional Paper 1. And it's a provincial paper. And this is why we're here today. I'm so proud to see so many of you here logging in. These are our lesson objectives for today. We're going to look on your time management, on the steps to write a summary, using the AIDA principle and advertisements, verbal and visual clues on cartoons I'll touch on. We're going to focus on question 5 and how to do comprehension. I hope you're ready and I hope you have a piece of paper and pen. Let's start. So let's quickly test your pre-knowledge. I know I'm talking to the experts. Let's see. Can you name the different sections of paper 1 that you'll be writing tomorrow? Let me give you a few seconds to think about it quickly. Yes, as I said, I'm talking to the experts. Of course, you've got a comprehension, 30 marks. You've got a summary of 10 marks, your advertisement of 10 marks, cartoon 10 marks, and the dreaded question 5 of 20 marks. But you know how much time you should be able to spend on each section. This is a trick question, isn't it? Let me give you a few seconds to think about this one. Have you done it? Let's check. So, for your comprehension, you will need at least 50 minutes. So you need to think very carefully how you're going to manage that. For your summary, you will need about 20 minutes. Advertisement, 15. Your cartoon, another 15. And that leaves you with question 5, which is left with 20 minutes. Now, if you look at it like that, then it's a whole new ball game, isn't it? But I'm sure after today's lesson, you will know exactly how to spend your time. You've got 2 hours for 80 marks. Do you have enough time? Yes, you do. You just have to use it very wisely. So how do you manage your time? And remember, this is my opinion, but I really do feel that you need to start with the summary first. Do not start with the comprehension. Remember, it's your most difficult part of your paper, whereas the summary is easy. The answers are already there. So I would suggest start with your summary first. I know you might think, am I allowed to do that? Yes, of course you are. Nowhere in the instructions does it say that you have to start with question 1 first. As long as you clearly indicate the question number, it will be perfect. So start with your summary, then move on to your advertisement, cartoon and language, and then leave the last part for your comprehension. By doing this, you will have enough time to complete all the sections of the paper. You might even have time to go back to make sure you've done everything. So if I were to start on the summary, you will have about up to 9:30. I actually want to say to you, maybe cut a bit on your time in your summary. The more time you can cut on your summary, the more time you'll have left for your comprehension. On your advertisement and cartoon, If you can go up to, let's say, 10 past 10, let's make it 10 o'clock, between 10 and 10 past 10, then the rest of the time be left for your summary or for your comprehension. Can you see how important it will be to manage your time and to watch the clock? Because unfortunately, you only have 2 hours, and by 11 o'clock, your time will be up. So make sure that you have enough time for your comprehension. So you can't sit and think about a question too long. You'll have to answer it and get on with it. So let's start with the summary. We'll pretend this is our paper and we're going to start with a summary for 10 marks. Question 2. But before we start, you know that you'll have your 10 minutes of reading time. Now this is probably the most important time of your paper. You have 10 minutes that you must use wisely. So make sure you read the comprehension then and figure out what is it all about. Then read your summary. Make sure you read the instructions very carefully. Study the advertisement. What catches your attention? And lastly, enjoy the cartoon. That should give you your 10 minutes reading time. Make sure you use it. Don't daydream, don't sleep, read. So let's get back to our summary. So the aim of a summary is to find the main ideas of a text. But we're also testing whether you can follow instructions. It's really important to know that you have to ignore information that's not relevant to the text. You will be asked to write down the main ideas in your own words. And we will give you a word limit. Now, keeping that in mind, it does sound like a mouthful. I promise you, it's going to be quite easy. So let's look at your instructions. These instructions are always the same. It says, first of all, your summary must be written in point form. That's really important. Not little hearts, not little dots, point form. We need 7 points in full sentences, and you're only allowed to use up to 70 words. You have to number your sentences 1 to 7. It's not a paragraph, remember? Number them. Write 1 point per sentence. In other words, 1 fact per sentence. Use your own words as far as possible. So I'm going to show you that trick. Indicate the total number of words you have used. Don't lie. We count them. I promise you. So what I need you to do is to identify what you should summarize. Now, we will never ask you just to summarize the whole text. We will be very specific as to what you need to summarize. Do you need to find the 7 ways to stay healthy or the 7 ways to stay younger? Whichever it is, there's a very specific topic that will be given to you. Make sure you write that topic in big, bold letters on the top of your page so that you can be reminded of it the whole time. And before you read every sentence in your summary, read your topic so that you know this is what I'm looking for. Now, remember, if you're doing a rough draft, you have to draw a line through it. So make sure you indicate your final and your rough draft clearly. I want to show you a quick activity. So this is an example. It says, bullying has become a problem of our time. Read text C below and list 7 points on how parents can deal with bullying. That's the instruction that is given on a question paper. What I want you to do is to change that instruction into a question. Can you do that? Change the instruction into a question so that you know what you're looking for. How do we do that? Exactly like this. How can parents deal with bullying? That is what I'm going to be looking for when I'm summarizing my text. And that is exactly what I need you to do. When you get an instruction, immediately change it into a question rather than big bold letters so that you know this is exactly what I'm looking for. And any information that's not relevant to this instruction, I'm going to ignore it. If you can follow it, this instruction, I promise you, you're going to get your 7 marks and your 3 language marks easily. So we've got 5 steps to summarize the text, and I'm sure you know them, but let me quickly remind you again. So the first one is delete. Your second one is to keep. Third one is to substitute. Fourth one is to list. And obviously the fifth one is to write. These steps are crucial in the writing of a summary. Make sure that you know them. Delete, keep, summarize, list, and write. But what does it mean? Let me remind you once again quickly. So you're going to delete what is not relevant to your instruction. Where? Well, when you get your question paper, take your pen or your highlighter in your hand and delete what you don't need. In other words, what's not relevant, delete it immediately. And you can use it on your question paper. That question paper is yours. Use it. Your next step then is to decide what you want to keep. In other words, you'll read through the ones that you are keeping and to see whether you actually have 7 sentences that will be available. Here comes the difficult part. Now you have to substitute. Remember, one of the instructions is to write in your own words. So you have to use synonyms where possible. And after you've done that, this is then when you start listing your sentences underneath each other and numbering them 1 to 7. But you're almost there. Step number 5 means you write your final. You indicate it clearly that this is the final and you draw a line through the draft. Most of the time, you will not be required to write a title of a summary. Just check your instructions. Remember, you have to count your number of words to make sure you are within the 70 range words. And last few quick tips. Always refer to the instructions. What is expected of me? What exactly should I summarize? Use your highlighter or your pen and delete anything that is not relevant to your instruction. Do not write more than 70 words. Yes, we do count the words. So, if you have to put it into your own words, how do you do it? Well, there's 4 options available. You can, 1, rewrite the sentence into the passive voice. You can find synonyms for some of the words. You can even change the tense. Or you can start your sentence with a verb. If you use these 4 options, it will be easier for you to write those sentences into your own words. I especially like the 4th one, where you start with a verb first. That's the easiest way of doing it. And then you will get your 3 marks for language if you have not quoted. If you do feel that you have to quote, don't show it to us. Just do it. Right. Let's move on to advertisement. Remember what I said? We're starting with the summary. Then we'll move on to the advertisement or to the language. And the last 50 minutes, hour, we'll keep for our comprehension. Now, I'm sure you know the AIDA principle. The first thing is attention. And the first thing you need to look at is what grabbed my attention when I looked at that advertisement. So don't even jump to the questions. Take your time. For a few minutes, just look at your advertisement and try to figure out what grabbed it. Was it the pictures? Was it the layout? How did they grab your attention? And then the I for interest. What facts or statistics have they included to create an interest with me? This is where you actually read the advertisement. You don't only look at it, you read it. D is obviously for desire. This is where the advertiser creates a desire to make you feel like you need this product. You cannot be without this product. Be careful. It's not always a product. It can be a service too. So we wake up. And obviously the last one, the last A, is for action. They want you to buy this product or use this service. So what did they do to make it easy for you? Do they give you social media handles? Is there contact numbers? How easy is it to get this product? And there's your principle done. As easy as that. So I brought a nice advertisement for you. Please study this one. So as you can see, some of the words aren't legible. So what we will do in the exam is, well, we will retype it for you. So on the left-hand side, you will see 3 circles. And it says parent sauce atop it, eat it on its own. Ice cream profiteroles, cakes, pancakes, waffles. And then there's a small piece written there in the middle of the advertisement that says, introducing Clover Bliss chocolate dairy dessert. Creamy, smooth, decadent dessert for all occasions. Enjoy as a delicious pudding or serve as an indulgent pudding, sauce or topping. New bliss, double indulgence. Sounds delicious, doesn't it? Right, let's pretend this is the advertisement you get in the exam. First thing I need you to do is obviously look at it and tell me what grabbed your attention. What was the first thing you saw? Well, for me, I saw that spoon with that pudding. That grabbed my attention immediately. And then obviously I went and I looked at the words, and it's first thing I saw was double indulgence and bliss. So let's go through it. What is the first thing you saw when you saw this advertisement? Was it the box of dessert or the spoon and bowl of dessert? So these are the visuals. And you always have to remember every advertisement consists out of visuals and words. So visuals, obviously, they're going to try and catch your eye. They might include even a celebrity, or they're going to exaggerate it in some way. Other things that could have grabbed you is the words like bliss. Now, when you're looking at these words, I want you to immediately think of their meaning as well. Remember, nothing is accidental in an advertisement. Everything is there for a reason. So the advertiser decided to include these words specifically. Bliss. What does bliss mean? Well, bliss means perfect happiness or great joy. Double indulgence. Oh, that obviously means when you allow yourself to have something absolutely enjoyable. And then you might have seen it says ice cream profiteroles. I must admit, I had to go find this one in the dictionary as well. It's called a miniature cream puff filled with sweet or a savory filling. Wow. So immediately, if you do this, you need to figure out why did the advertiser decide to include all of these words. That's what's important. Words, we had our visuals and your words. Now your words will work with different fonts. Can you see the difference between bliss and double indulgence? Can you see the difference in size? Both look like they're written in italics, but the size always matters. So look out for small little things like that. Why did they write it in a circle? Obviously to grab your attention. Now, the next step is for you is to read the copy text. Now, if you don't know what the copy text is, the copy text is that small print that can be anywhere in your advertisement, either in the middle, at the end. Most of the time, we will retype this one for you. And it's really important for you to read this text because remember, focus is now on the words. What do these words create when you read them? Does it create an emotional response of you? Do they use scientific words or do they include statistics for that matter? Now, I've read this to you. And if you focus on the words they've used, creamy, smooth, decadent, delicious, indulgent, all of those words fit with the word bliss, means happiness. Because obviously, if you want to eat something that's absolutely fantastic, you're going to eat something that's smooth and creamy and decadent dessert. Can you see what they've done there? Yes, alliteration, decadent dessert. All kinds of little tricks they use to grab your attention. The next step that you have to do, you need to find that connection between the picture and the words. Every advertiser has this connection that they try and create with the reader, a connection to make you feel something, whether it's shock or happiness. They want to create an emotional response from you. And that's why they make a connection between the words and the pictures. Can you see the connection here? All of these words, you just look at your picture. If you just look on to the right of your advertisement, you'll see there's a spoon and he's obviously lifting some of the dessert out of the bowl. And you can see it's running down and it's creamy and it's smooth. And even the color that they use. Now, I know your advertisement for tomorrow will be in black and white, but the use of the purple here is a royal color. And immediately it just makes it more regal almost. Can you see that connection? Now, in the exam, you need to make sure that you tell us about that connection. Pretend I can't see what you are seeing. So you need to tell me everything in words. Don't think I can read between your lines. Please make sure that you tell me there is a spoon with some dessert on it running down, and that's connected to the creamy or the smooth part. Tell us everything. Right. One of the questions we love asking you is who's the target audience? In other words, the best way to explain target audience is who's going to put the product in their trolley. In other words, who's going to buy this? And you can see my little man there, and he has a little trolley, and there's a little advertisement inside there. So who's going to buy this? Now, be specific. You can't just say people. Not all people are going to buy it. So it's not people. You have to be specific. What kind of people? So we can say people who like to eat ready-made dessert or people who like chocolate desserts that they can use in different ways. Do you remember our dessert can be used as a sauce or as a topping or on its own? That's why we said people who like chocolate desserts in different ways. Can you see that you need to qualify it? What kind of people would like this dessert? It's as easy as that. I want you to look at this one. This is really interesting. You must be able to identify the logo and the slogan of an advertisement. You know that. But in this case, I'm sure you've seen this one so many times. It's a well-known logo and slogan. But in this advertisement, it actually had two slogans. Right at the top, it says way better, and at the bottom, it says made with love. And I can ask you in the exam, what is the connection between the logo and the slogan and the rest of the advertisement? Now, this little three-leaf clover, that's what it's called, it's also called a shamrock. And it stands for faith, hope, and love. And I'm sure you're thinking about, but isn't there a four-leaf clover as well? Yes, the fourth leaf is then for love. But it is only three ones: faith, hope, and love. Isn't that gorgeous? And how does it fit in with our advertisement? Well, this dessert is made with love. So they took special care when they made this. And it's way better. By saying that, they actually say our product is superior to any other product around us. Just by using that slogan. Don't you think that's brilliant? So here's your question. How does the slogan or the logo fit into the advertisement? We can't ask you something like that. If we do, please tell us exactly what the slogan is, tell us exactly what the logo is, and how does it fit together. One of the questions we love asking is obviously, is the message of the advertisement effective? Discuss your answer. Now, this is a high order question. High order means that you will have to give us more than just a yes or a no. Now, remember, you can't say no as long as you can prove it from the text why you're saying it. So, how do you answer something like this? Easy. You study the advertisement. You either have to say agree or I disagree. So you have to choose which one you want to use. Then, and this is a recipe to get your marks, refer to the images. What do I see? Refer to the words. What was written? And connect it to what is the message of the advertisement. If you can focus on those three things, you've got it made. Whether you agree with it or not, this is the way to say it. Remember, tell me what's happened in the picture, talk about the words, and connect the two to give you the message. Here's another one. Look at this one. This is really interesting. Look at this carefully because McDonald's advertisement has a little bit of a trick in it. I want to give you a second before I go on. Did you see it? So cleverly done, isn't it? It says, well, it depends on how you're going to read it. It says either 1 a.m. hungry or I am hungry. Brilliant use of words, huh? Absolutely brilliant. And it says over 350 restaurants open 24 hours. And now again, we can ask you, is it effective? And then you can refer to the picture, which has the big McDonald's trademark, which obviously is so recognizable, and the words that can be read in two different ways. I'm hungry or 1 a.m. hungry. And how it links it all up that McDonald's have more than 350 restaurants that will be open 24 hours. Is it effective? Yes, of course it is. Brilliant, isn't it? I really like it. So the same rule applies. You're either going to say, yes, I agree, it's brilliant, or no, I don't agree. Do you think we can say it's not effective? Let's think. You see, in this case, it might be quite difficult to prove that it's not effective. No, can't think of a way how you're going to be able to say that one, to say it's not effective. And this sometimes happens. Sometimes it's impossible to say it's not effective. And that's why most of the time when we give you an advertisement and we ask you, is it effective? 99.9% of the time it is. Are you ready to move over to your cartoons? I know I'm just touching on small things, but remember, these are the most important things I'm highlighting. Obviously, in class, I'm sure you've done a range of exercises and you have a range of notes. You have to go through them again. I'm just highlighting a few important things for you. So let's quickly talk cartoon tips. I think there's 4 things that are really important for cartoon. Analyze the clues, the humor, and the questions. So when you analyze, you really have to look at your cartoon carefully and see what's going on in there. Who are your characters? Where is it taking place? What are they doing? Why is it funny? Now again, don't just jump to your questions. Take your time just to read that cartoon carefully, to see how humor is created. What happens in the cartoon? Remember, the cartoonist will give you all kinds of clues, verbal and visual clues. Again, you need to describe them in detail to us. And in the end, it's all about the humor. Whether a cartoon is funny or not, you will have to find evidence from the cartoon to prove that it is funny. And then look at your questions and look at your mark allocation. Now remember, with both the advertisement and the cartoon, there will be 2 marks allocated to language based on the cartoon and the advertisement. So don't get a fright when you see them. They're supposed to be there. Now, there's a lot of terminology involved with cartoons, just like the same with advertisements. So let's run through them again. Setting. Where and when does it take place? You must be able to recognize this. Facial expression. Remember, when we do facial expression, we look at the eyes, the eyebrows, and the mouth. So you can't only say the facial expressions, be specific. What exactly of the facial expression is showing me that this character is angry or this character is upset? The same with body language. Here, we're going to focus on the hands, the feet, and the whole way the body is used. So again, don't use the term body language. Be specific. What tells you this person is angry or upset? What gestures are made? Look at the language. Is it formal? Is it informal? Now, these are 2 important clues. You get verbal clues, where it's all about the words, and of course you've got visual clues. This is where the pictures show the meaning. In the exam, you must be able to differentiate between verbal and visual clues. I brought Garfield to me. Look at the following cartoon. Do you find it funny? I think it's quite funny. It is bang, bang, eek, smack. Okay, I'll change the channel. And then Garfield, I don't like violence. Yes, so let's run through them. So this is what I would if this was a cartoon in the exam, this is how I would analyze it for myself. Okay, where's the setting? Easy. It looks like a sitting room, a lounge, because I can see a television, I can see a nice chair. It is funny that Garfield is sitting on the chair, not John, isn't it? But anyways, what do these words indicate? Bang, bang, eek. Now, obviously, you know it's onomatopoeia, where a sound, a word imitates a sound. So that obviously would be what's happening, the sounds that's happening on the television. Am I right? Can you see there's a little squiggle going down to indicate it's coming from the television? Look at frame number 2. So what's happening here is, of course, Garfield has hit John behind the head. And you can just see the big word smack, but you can also see that movement line. Do you see that whole movement line, how he smacked him? And shame, poor John's little face is going like this. It was quite a big smack, isn't it? Right. And now I can ask you in the exam to describe John's facial expression. Now, obviously, you'll have to explain in detail to say his eyes are wide open, not wild, wide open. His mouth is closed, but the cartoonists have drawn quite a number of little faces to show the movement of his head. And let's look at the final one. Is this cartoon funny? In this case, we can either say yes or no. You can say yes. It's funny because they're watching obviously something that's quite violent. Garfield smacks him. That's violent. And then he thinks to himself, I don't like violence. That's irony. We expect one thing, something else happens. But you also can say this is not funny at all. Poor John is being abused by Garfield. This is not right. You shouldn't be smacked around like that. So in this case, you can say either yes or no. As long as you can motivate it from the text, we need to give you the marks. Let me give you another one. This is Madam and Eve, and this is Mrs. Anderson. And you will see there in frame 1, it says Harda. And I'm sure you recognize that sound anywhere in the world, especially in South Africa. And you can just see poor Mrs. Anderson's face there. And you can see her in frame 2, she's walking. And then in frame 3, it says they vote for a hardy dog party. And then we have a little hardy dog sitting there. Right. So let's quickly look at a few important things. Can you identify the verbal and the visual clues in this cartoon? I'm sure you know what a verbal and a visual clue is, but are you able to identify them here? Let's look. So let's look at your clues. So visual clues is whatever you see. In other words, these are the pictures, the setting, characters, body language, facial expression. That is your visual clues. Whereas your verbal clues are the words, the font, the capital letters, the punctuation, even the words that has been used. Remember, this is crucial to you. You must be able to see the difference between them, between a visual clue and a verbal clue. Now, let me just go back quickly. Let's see if we can go back. Here's another one. I've got Calvin here, Calvin and Susie. Calvin loves Susie. But in this case, we can ask a question about contrast. Now, this is another kind of question we love to ask you. The question will be something like, indicate the contrast between the characters. When you do a contrast question, always remember that you have to compare apples with apples. In other words, if you're going to refer to the eyes of the one person, you have to refer to the eyes of the other person. If you're going to refer to the mouth, of the one person, you must refer to the mouth of the other person. That is really important. So, in this case, you will see here, Calvin's eyes are closed, where Susie's eyes are wide open. Calvin's mouth is wide open. You can actually see his teeth, whereas Susie's mouth is closed. We can also say, for instance, the action. Calvin is biting on his teeth, his hands are lifted up, whereas Susie's arms are at her side. She's not doing anything, she's just sitting there. Can you see the difference? So when you do a contrast, always remember, you have to compare the same things with each other. Don't compare the mouth of a one character with the eyes of the other character. Focus on the same things. And be specific in your answer. Right. Remember with Garfield we had a sound effect that smack, smack? Now, obviously, sound effects are part of cartoons. The cartoonist can't put a sound into his cartoon, so you have to use sound effects. So he uses onomatopoeia, the words that imitate sound to create a sound effect. And this is one of my favorite ones with Jeremy. It says, "Why does my stomach wait for a taste to go full karaoke?" I'm sure you've experienced it as well when you're sitting there in the exam hall and suddenly your stomach goes full karaoke, just like his here. It says, "Splork, splork." Right. But remember, these sound effects are so important to any cartoon. So be on the watch out for them as well. So let's quickly go back to Mrs. Anderson. Now, we love asking you about a character's emotions. And how we would phrase it would be something like this. How do you know the character is angry or frustrated? Or how do you know the character had a fright, depending on your cartoon? And then this is where you really have to focus on the detail. And again, I say start with your facial expression. Start with the eyes, the mouth, eyebrows. Go to your body position and your body language. But you can't use those words. So if you look at the first frame, you'll see there, poor Mrs. Anna's eyes are wide open. Her mouth is skewed, and she's literally, her drink, whatever she's drinking, is flying through the air. You can really see she's had a fright just looking at her facial expression. But look for me at the second frame now. Can you see now her eyes are now small? Now we know she's angry. How do I know it? She's focused. Can you see her eyes are small? She is focused. Mouth is small. Look at that arms. Arms are moving up and down. She is going straight for whatever made that noise. Right, so it's small things like that you have to pick up. Once again, remember, pretend that we can't see what you see. Tell us everything. And then obviously, that connection between the visual and the verbal forms your humour. And I've got a nice infinity symbol here for you to remind you. So your visual clues on the one hand side and your verbal clues all work together to form your humour. And what kind of humour do we get? Irony, satire, fun, anticlimax. You have to know these guys, they might be hard. And obviously, one of the things we always ask is, do you find the cartoon humorous? In other words, do you find the cartoon funny? Okay, so this is the more difficult part. It might be that you don't find it funny at all, but now you have to tell it's funny. The easiest way to do this is to find that connection between the pictures and the words. Even if you don't find it funny, attempt the question by telling us what happened, what did you see, what happened with the words, and how did the two fit together. Here, let me give you an example. Here is Jeremy's mom and dad. It says, will you ask him? This was your idea. You ask him. Now immediately note for me those bigger letters, bold, capital letters. Fine. Look at that frame. I want you to notice something immediately. Can you see our little speech bubble is in black? Okay, we don't obviously find that, do we? No. That means obviously he's angry. He's obviously not happy. Because we don't know what's the issue here yet. We only get to know it in the last frame when it says, Jeremy, will you activate our new Team Tracker app for me, please? Is this some kind of irony test? Okay, so let's unpack it quickly. The parents want to use a teen tracker. So obviously they want to track Jeremy. The problem is they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to activate that. Now they have to ask Jeremy to activate the app so that they can track it. Okay, so that is funny. And that is why Jeremy says there's some kind of irony. So how does the irony come about? Let me show you. Remember, irony is a contrast between what we expect to happen and what actually happens. So we expect the parents, if they want to track their teens, they should be able to use the app. But now they're going to be teenager to ask him to assist them. Right. So Jeremy's parents want to track him. Jeremy? Now this is crucial. Make sure you have that little word but there included for me. But they don't know how to activate that. It's like your mom and dad coming to ask you. They want to track you using Google Maps or whatever, but they don't know how to work. So you have to show them how to be able to track you. So what is important here is it's irony. I want to see that little but there. If you don't want to remember but, use however. But I need to see that contrast very clearly. Okay, here's another one for you. Mom, can I have a laundry basket? Yes, yes, yes. Now, obviously, and this is so funny actually. And you can actually just stop there, it's already funny because mom thinks Jeremy actually wants a laundry basket so that he can put actually his dirty clothes in a laundry basket. Now, teenagers are stereotyped here that they just throw their clothes everywhere. But in the next frame, you'll see why it's so funny. My mom was surprisingly supportive for a change. I'd aim for that bush. Is Jeremy using the laundry basket for what it is supposed to be used for? Hell no. No, he's going to use it to slide down the roof. And you see the irony. We expect Jeremy to use the laundry basket for his dirty clothes. He's going to use it to go down the roof. Right, here's another one. So there's not a lot of words here, but there's a lot of sound imitation. So we can zzz, beep, 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 clang, 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 wake up. And you can see there's a few slaps and then shine. In frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the cell phone seems to die. And then the guy says, you're late. Sorry, my phone died. Right, so yeah, Shane, the phone tried everything to wake up Jeremy, who was sleeping. That little Z tells us he's sleeping. Couldn't wake him up and he died. A few important tips. Study your cartoon before you look at the questions. Analyze it for yourself. Figure out what's going on there. Then read your questions carefully. And then refer only to specific frame if the question clearly tells you so. So we would say refer to frame 3. Then really only look at frame 3. Don't jump the gun. And once again, pretend the examiner can't see what you're seeing. Tell us everything. Right, we're moving on to question 5. And I know I can just hear you sighing. Don't worry, we'll get through this. So the first question is usually on finding the errors in a sentence. So it's question 5.1.1. It says correct the single error in each of the following sentences. Write down only the question number and the words you've corrected. Now always remember there's only one error. You need to correct it and you have to write down only the answer. Now, it doesn't make it easier, does it? Actually, it does. So, which errors should you be looking for? Now, read the sentences in your mind. When you read it, it might sound that it's incorrect. That's exactly when you know something's not working, something is wrong. Now, I'm going to give you a little checklist there that you can use to check whether the word you think is wrong is actually wrong. So, when we set the paper and we set this question specifically, there are a few things we're looking for. We usually include a spelling error. This is quite difficult, but they're there. Apostrophe. So the apostrophe might either be used incorrectly or it might not be there. It should have been there, but it isn't. Concord. Does your subject and your verb agree? In other words, you know that the dogs is, you can't say that, you say the dogs are. Words that are often confused, like two, and two. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Two, two, two. Words like that are often used. Prepositions, oh, they love including a preposition. Instead of saying on the table, you say, I can't think of a word now, off the table. But check for me on prepositions and check tenses. And it's the incorrect tense that's been used. We will never use a punctuation as an error. So don't even go there. Don't even try and find a punctuation error. There isn't one. But these guys are the ones that are often asked. So what do you have to study for tomorrow? So there's actually, again, a long list. And I'm sure by now you know because we've been doing it from grade 8 already. But just to remind you, you have to know your parts of speech. You have to know what they are. You must be able to recognize them because you will be asked that. The next thing is how words are formed. Now, in a previous lesson we discussed this, that a word sometimes consists out of a root word and there's a prefix or a suffix included, like unacceptable. So focus on how words are formed. Remember, prefix, that's why you need your pencil. Prefix is at the beginning, and a suffix obviously is what's added at the end. Active and passive voice. We're definitely going to ask you. Now, when you practice this, practice from changing an active sentence into the passive, but also from a passive into the active. Now, always remember for me here, do not change the tense. The tense stays the same. So just a quick reminder, underline, first thing you need to do here is find your verb, find your subject and your object. And what's the next thing you're going to do? So you've got your subject, your verb, and your object. Remember, it's not always just one word. A subject can be quite a few phrases, and the object can be quite a number of phrases as well. So don't get discouraged. And the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to switch places. As easy as that. Remember, your verb doesn't change the tense. Just be on the lookout what the verb is used. Is it used in the present tense? Is it used as a continuous tense or is it used in the perfect tense? That's all you really need to look for. And then another question we love asking is the question tags. I'm sure you remember this. This usually at the end of a statement, we add a little tag and it means is it true or do you agree? And here we're working with positive and negatives. You know positive and negative always attract. So if your sentence is positive, your tag's going to be negative and vice versa. I love reading books don't I? Or I can say, I don't love reading books, do I? Please make sure the apostrophe is in the right place. Really important. And make sure, this is a tricky one. Sometimes we'll just tell you to add a tag, but we don't always put a question mark at the end of a sentence. If it's not there, make sure you include it. Then reported speech. Remember, I'm giving you a list of things that we love asking you. First thing, remove all the punctuation. Remove everything you can see. Inverted commas, exclamation, question marks. Remove all of that. Highlight it so that you can see it. First, next thing, find your pronouns and change them. Remember, we can't have an I and a we. We have to change them to he or she or they. That's important. Then your verb, one step into the past. This is where your verb is going to change. Not of active and passive, but with reported speech. Remember, it's like gossiping. You're telling someone what you've heard. So you have to go one step into the past. And be careful for time words. Do you remember those ones? Here becomes there. Yesterday becomes the previous day. Tomorrow becomes the next day. So just be on the lookout for those. Okay, combining sentences. We discussed this. We're going to give you a conjunction and we're going to ask you to combine two sentences. Just read it carefully. Should you start with a conjunction or don't they mind? Then don't repeat words. So if we have words, don't repeat them. Otherwise it sounds funny. Make sure you use the correct tense and make sure that concord. Make sure that your subject and your verb agrees with each other. Right, so let's run through another thing. Vocabulary. Remember, I'm only touching on a few things. You have done, I hope, so many exercises that covers everything of language. So make sure if you have, after this lesson, you have time to go through everything. But I'm just highlighting a few things for you. Can you remember the difference between a homophone and a homonym? So homophone, phone, they sound the same, but they spell differently and they have different meanings. Remember when you're talking on a phone, you can't always hear the spelling. You don't know how a word is spelled. So different spellings, different meanings. Like choose or choose. Homonyms are spelled and pronounced the same way, but they have different meanings. So these guys are spelled the same, but they have different meanings. And in this case, rock, a rock, you can rock. That's a rock as well. And then then we have the rock as well. Can you see? All three is rock, but all of them have different meanings. I'm sure you're going to remember my little rock, isn't it? Synonyms, you know? Synonyms are words that are spelled, are similar in meaning. Like for another word for big will be colossal or huge or gigantic. Antonyms are just the opposite. So for cautious and careless, the difference there. And then you've got words that are often confused. Oh my goodness, these are quite difficult ones. We had our advertisement, our dessert. And do you remember dessert has a double S? Remember how the only one I remembered, dessert has a double S because it's all about indulgence. You know, you want double as much. Where this one is dessert or a desert. You see, this one is dessert, desert. You have to be able to know. So these guys obviously jump into our errors at the beginning. Okay, so I think before we're going to move on to the comprehension, we've been working very hard. I'm going to take a few minutes, just a few minutes, 2-3 minutes break. Give you a moment to catch your breath as well, and then we'll go on to our last part, which is the comprehension. I'll see you just now. Hello and welcome back. My name is Elizabeth Meyer and we are discussing paper one, the one you're writing tomorrow. So if you have a comment or a query, you're welcome to use the WhatsApp number 064 748 8913. But thank you to each and everyone that's watching. I'm sure you're finding this valuable. So let me just remind you where we were. We started when we discussed this to say that you shouldn't start with the comprehension. The best place to start is the summary. And that's what we did. We went through question 2, question 3, 4, and 5. And now we're back at question 1. Your comprehension for 50 marks. Now remember, as I've said, you have to use your time wisely. If you've used your time wisely, it should be now around 10 o'clock tomorrow. And you should be left with almost an hour to complete the comprehension. But I also said that you have to read your comprehension text in that 10 minutes reading time that's given to you. This is absolutely crucial so that you already have an idea of what's going on. Now let's run it through it again. When you read your text, focus on the title. Make sure you understand what the title means. Read your questions and make sure that you understand what each question expects you to do. Look at the mark allocation. Rue even said you have to underline the question word. I'll read again. And summarize your notes as you go. You can even make little notes where you think an answer to a question might be. And then it's time to answer those questions. So let's go through it step by step. You're going to read your passage through reading time. Remember, that's a 10 minutes that's given to you. Look at your title. What does it mean? So before you even start reading the text, just take a few seconds to look at your title and try to unpack it for yourself. What do you expect this text to be about if you're just looking at the title? What kind of things are they going to talk about? Do I know anything about this? Or have I read anything about this? Then, what is the text all about? So this is questions you're going to keep in the back of your mind. What is the text all about? What happens in the text? When does it take place? Maybe there's a time frame linked to your text. And I want you to, while you're reading, be critical. Do I agree with this writer, what he's saying here? And if not, why am I not agreeing with him? Your first paragraph and your last paragraph is probably the most crucial paragraphs. Because the first paragraph introduces the subject, and the last paragraph usually gives an idea of why this text was written. And that's exactly what you need to figure out as well. So let's look at the next one. You've read your text once. I need you now to go to the questions. So can you see my little blocks that I'm building? I'm building little Lego blocks there on the side. Study your questions. Are there questions that you can answer easily? You know that's straightforward, that you know the answers in there. Are there questions that are a bit more tricky? And which questions want my opinion? You have to be able to distinguish between these questions. It makes it easier for you to answer them as well. Underline your question word. You really need to find that question word. Is it a describe? Is it a list? Is it a discuss? Is it a explain? What exactly do they want from you? And encircle any keyword or idea. Remember that question paper is yours. Scratch on it, work on it, cry if you need to cry on it. That's your paper. Step number 3. I need you to read the passage again. Again. So this is now the second time you're going to read it. And you'll have your pen or your highlight, and you're going to go, as you go, now you're going to make little notes for yourself. And what are you going to make notes about? Well, when you read, you might find an answer, and you may say, oh, this is the answer to one of those questions I've read. Indicate it for yourself so that you know, oh, this is where I need to look for it. You might even find words that are not familiar. Underline them and look around them to see if you can figure their meaning. I want you to focus for me on joining words. So joining words are words that link paragraphs or sentences with each other. However, but, firstly, secondly, words like that tells you where there's a contrast, for instance. Focus on them as well, because then you'll be able to see the link between paragraphs. Very important. Do you understand what each paragraph is about? Can you, quickly in your own words, tell me what every paragraph is about? If you can't, go back, make sure you read that paragraph once again. You have to find out what the main idea is so that you know what it's all about. Now we go into your questions. Look at the mark allocation. This is absolutely crucial. 1 fact, 1 mark. Now, your questions will start from paragraph 1 and it will run right through. We will be very specific as to give you an exact paragraph or an exact line that you have to refer to. Always make sure that you go back to that specific paragraph or that specific line. You will find the answer there. Always go back to that line. Remember, we're not giving you the full line, we're giving you part of a line. So make sure you go back to that. And the mark allocation will tell you how much you will need to write. So let's look at specific questions that might pop up tomorrow. Why is the following statement false? We can also ask, why is the following statement true? So in this case, what we usually give you then is we give you a statement. And you have to explain to us why it's correct or incorrect. Now, always make sure you only quote when you ask to quote. If nobody asks you to quote, don't quote. Be safe, don't quote. Now, if you are asked to quote, make sure you use inverted commas. Sometimes we will tell you to quote 5 consecutive words. 5 consecutive words means words that follow each other. It's not 5 random words. So make sure you find the right 5. Sometimes we will ask you to state 2 points or give 2 points or state 2 ways. In a question like this, and then we usually count 2 marks, I need 2 very distinct different facts. So make sure you find 2 very different facts that you can give us. If the instruction says list 2 facts, in this case, I want you to put the 2 facts underneath each other, like a list, like a grocery list. So can you see the difference between state 2 points and list 2 points? List will be underneath each other, state will be in a sentence. You can also list it, it doesn't matter. But when you list, you must list. The fact is, there must be 2 very distinct different facts for us. Multiple choice questions. Never underestimate them. They can be quite tricky at times. So eliminate the ones that you know is completely incorrect until you get to the right answer. If we ask you to illustrate, you need to give us an example. If we ask you to compare something, then we're going to look at the differences and the similarities. Not only differences, similarities included. If you ask to describe something, you need to tell us what it's like. Oh, and here comes the tricky one. If we say, explain in your own words or using your own words, explain why or suggest reasons why, this is what I need you to do. Go back to the specific line or paragraph that's given to you. Read it very carefully. See if you can find the answer. But unfortunately, because it says own words, you're not allowed to quote. So you have to put it in your own words. So try to use the synonyms or explaining it to us in your own words. You cannot quote. Always tell us why you're saying that. In other words, give us evidence why something is said in such a way. For instance, if you are asked to explain a phrase or a sentence, make sure that you explain the whole sentence. If you're asked to explain 2 words, make sure you explain both of them. Use those full sentences. The next type of questions we can ask is discuss. This is where we can ask you, discuss the suitability of a title or whether the paragraph is appropriate conclusion, or do you agree with the writer's opinion? So with these kinds of questions, immediately you know this will be a higher order question. It's the same ones we find in the advertisement and the cartoon as well. Now, again, look at your mark allocation. Is it a 2 mark or 3 marks? If I ask you to substantiate, that means you have to give us reasons why you say so. What's the best way to do it? I'm sure you know it. Yes, it's the peel method. Think of that little banana. You have to tell me whether you agree or not. In other words, choose your yes or your no. And then give me an explanation and an example and link it back to the question. Remember, the example and explain can switch places. But you have to make your point. Give me an example and explain it, or explain and give me an example and link it back to your question. That is the peel method. And if you use it, you can't go wrong. I promise you. Now, part of your comprehension is a visual text that they will include. And that can be anything. A cartoon, an infographic, a graph, an advertisement, anything that's visual in nature. So how do you answer these questions? Well, it's easy. Let's go through it. First thing you need to figure out is what kind of text is it? Is it a graph? Is it an infographic, cartoon? What kind of information is shown to you? So again, don't jump to the questions. Look at it very carefully and study it. Are there pictures and words? And then again, what is the connection between your pictures and the words? Always try to find that connection. Step number 2. Now, read the words and try to link them to the picture. So you focus solely on the words. Now, they might be in the heading, they might be in little blocks somewhere. Make sure you read all the words that are available. Now look at the picture then again and think, how do these words support the picture? How do the two fit in together? And in your third step, now you can go and answer the questions. A few last steps that we still need to do. And I've said this so many times today. Use your time wisely. You've got your 10 minutes reading time. Make sure you use it up to the last 10 minutes. You cannot daydream, you cannot sleep. Read your comprehension, read your summary. Look at your advertisement. Enjoy your cartoon. Read the questions carefully. For me, the golden rule is with questions is read them 3 times. Think twice, write once. Sometimes it's necessary for you to unpack the question. In other words, read it more than once to know exactly what is expected for you. Sometimes it feels like the learners don't know, or you don't always know how to answer it. And that's how you get it wrong. So please take time when you're reading that question, read it at least 3 times so that you know exactly what is expected for you. And remember that list of question words at the beginning of your book or somewhere in your book? Tonight, before you go to bed, you have to make sure that you go through them again, that you know exactly what is expected of you. Look at the mark allocation, especially with your higher order questions. In other words, questions that ask of an opinion or a discussion. You have to make sure that you've given us enough information. Always make sure your answer is grounded in the text. That means you can't just make a general assumption. Always make sure your answer can be taken back to the text. You've got 2 hours, which is more than enough time. Now remember we said we're going to start with your summary. That should take you about 20 minutes. I don't think going over 20 minutes, then you're pushing it. So try to get by 9:20 that you're done with your summary. so that the rest of the 40 minutes you will be able to use for your advertisement, cartoon, and your language. And then at exactly 10 o'clock, I would suggest you start working on your comprehension. That will make sure that you have enough time. If you are done before 11 o'clock, I need you to go back. Make sure you've answered all the questions. Now remember, question 5 has a visual text as well. So don't forget about those ones. You really have to read up to the last where it says total for question paper. Make sure you've numbered correctly. Make sure go back to your summary. Did you follow all these instructions? Are you happy with what you've done? Now, a small tip. Leave a line open between your answers. It makes it so much easier for the marker to mark your work. So get into the rhythm of leaving a line open. So what happens if you're busy with a question but you have absolutely no idea how to answer this? You have literally no idea. What do? Do you leave it open? I wouldn't. Never, ever leave a question open. Try. Just try. If you're not sure, just try. At least you've written there something. Maybe it's the right answer. You can always go back when you're done and you still have time. You can go back and say, reread that question and say, okay, this is not right. But please never leave open a space. Always write something, because you never know, it might just be the right answer. And please be aware of your spelling, especially in question 5. Remember, that's where spelling is marked. So you have to make sure that you're extra peculiar about your language and your spelling. You don't want to make stupid mistakes then and lose all your marks, do you? No. So please make sure that you on question 5, you are what we call pedantic. You have to be really careful. So, for practice for tomorrow, to make sure that you absolutely get those 10 marks that we want you to get for your summary. On the screen, you will see I've included for you a summary question. Do you remember the one we started with and I asked you how to do this? We said bullying has become a problem of our time. Read text C and list 7 points on how parents can deal with bullying. Now remember what we said. Take that instruction, how parents can deal with bullying, change it into a question, and that's the one that you write right on top of your page so that you can look at it the whole time and think, this is what I'm looking for. How parents can deal with bullying. In other words, what should parents do so that they can deal with bullying? And then you're going to find your 7 facts there. And do you remember the steps still? I'm sure you do. Delete, keep, substitute, list, and write. And as I said, there's your instructions. These instructions never change. Use it as a little checklist when you're done on your paper. Remember, and your question paper is yours. Please use it. Highlight on it. Scratch on it. Do whatever you need to do. So let's quickly look at your text that's given to you. So this is the text. Remember, it's not a long text that's given to you. Let's quickly look at it while for homework. This is what you'll have to do. I'm just going to read it through with you and you'll be able to do it. As I go on, see if you can quickly pick up those 7 facts that we want from you. How to beat those bullies. Bullying in schools and on social media is increasingly in the spotlight. A 2013 survey found that over 50% of South African children were at risk of being bullied at school. Social networking sites are powerful tools for bullies. Therefore, can I just stop there? Can you see everything they talk about, the study and everything is not relevant to what we want you to know. Because our question was, how can parents prevent bullying? Therefore, haha, there's your word. Parents need to be vigilant by blocking communication with whoever posts offensive messages. Haha, there's my one fact. Can you see that? Here's your next one. Always listen to your child when they come to you for help. Can you see how the second fact jumps in there? It is important that you believe them, listen and respond thoughtfully. Sometimes just being heard respectfully is the beginning of healing. All of that is an example which you don't want. So the beginning of paragraph 2, that's my another fact. Work with your child as bullying involves a loss of dignity and control. Involving your child in solutions helps them regain control. The best thing you can do to stop bullying is to take a stand against it. Because you can make the situation worse by acting rashly. Right. So, work with your child. Involve your child in solutions. Next one. Consider both positive and negative sides before doing anything or taking action. Here's another one. The goal is to restore self-respect. It is not about destroying the bully, but improving your child's resilience and self-respect. Sometimes this means confronting the bully, but sometimes not. You and your child should figure out how to get there together. Can you see there's a lot of examples given to you? We're not interested in that in paragraph 5. We only want the goal is to restore self-respect. It's not about how you're going to do it, it's what you should do. Let's look at paragraph number 6. Delete all nasty messages and post. But make a hard copy first. There's your fact. You may need to save it for evidence later. Very important. Report it, as most social media sites don't tolerate cyberbullying and are willing to help. Don't hesitate to inform the school about what happened. Can you see how easy it is? You just need to find those 7 facts. You can see, so easy. So, 5 steps to success for tomorrow. Use your time wisely. Breathe. Don't forget to breathe. I know it sounds obvious. Just breathe. Sometimes you just need to have some fresh oxygen and you'll be able to do this. Read. Think. Write. Really important. I know you can do this. You know you're going to do absolutely brilliant. Now remember, on the 28th of July then. Oh my goodness, time is just flying. The next lesson will be, and it will be revision. So, because we're moving closer to your prelim exam as well, hey? And I really want to finish this wonderful day with the words of Zig Ziglar. And this is what he looks like. And it says, if you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you're determined to learn, no one can stop you. I want to wish you all of the very best. Good luck for tomorrow. I know you're going to do well. And until we meet again, all of the best. Thank you and goodbye.